The police suddenly told me that they urgently transported a child found in my car, and I was under arrest. I was shocked by their unexpected arrival at my home and couldn't believe what I heard. I insisted that I don't have a child, and the officer seemed equally puzzled. They identified the car's owner through the license plate, and it was registered under my name. I rushed to the hospital where the child was taken. There, I saw a boy around 5 years old lying on an emergency bed. Despite my confusion, my heart raced at the sight of his familiar face. From that moment, my life changed dramatically with this child at the center. My name is Emily, a 33-year-old who works from home. I met my husband Michael in college, and we married after graduation. Despite being married for 10 years, we couldn't have children due to my fertility issues. Michael reassured me and said, "It's okay. Let's live happily, just the two of us." My in-laws were understanding, but I felt bad for my parents who were hoping for grandchildren. Fortunately, I often visited my parents since I lived nearby. I wished my younger brother John had a child. John, 7 years younger, had distanced himself from the family due to rebellious behavior in his youth. He disappeared without a trace at the age of 20. I haven't seen him since, but I occasionally reminisce about the days when he used to call me sis while toddling after me in our childhood photos. One day, while working at home, an unexpected incident occurred. My doorbell rang incessantly, and in a panic, I checked the camera to find the police standing there at 3:00 a.m. The police suddenly announced they urgently transported a child found in the car, and I was under arrest. Shocked by this abrupt statement, I was at a loss for words. I insisted that I don't have a child, and the officer seemed just as baffled. According to the police, a passerby noticed a car abandoned on the road with a limp child inside, reported it, and the child was transported by ambulance to the emergency room. When I asked about the location of the car, it was in front of my parents' house. Unfortunately, my parents were away on a trip. The police identified the owner of the car from its license plate, and while the car was indeed registered under my name, the person using it was my younger brother John. I used to lend my car to John, who had just gotten his license, and he took it when he left home. The car had been left in front of my parents' house, only taken for inspection and maintenance. Despite scolding him, my parents took care of the vehicle's maintenance, thinking he might need it. Hastening to the hospital, I approached the emergency room bed, and I saw the top of a small head peeking out from a blanket. The curly, wavy hair instantly reminded me of someone, and my heart raced as a childhood memory of John flashed before my eyes. Getting closer, I saw the face of a boy around 4 to 5 years old who looked strikingly like John. Could it be that this child is John's? As I pondered this, I received a panicked phone call from my mother, who was away. John had called, asking me to take care of his child. He explained that he left the child in the car because we weren't home under the blazing sun. Faced with the dilemma of what to do, I informed the worried and panicking mother that the child had already been taken to the hospital and seemed likely to survive. Relieved, she said she would be back soon, understanding that there was no time for a trip. Realizing this child was my brother's, I wondered about his birth and who his mother was. I explained to the police that he's probably my brother's child and decided to stay with him. Despite my attempts to call my brother, I couldn't get through. Seeing the child in pain, I felt for his small body enduring so much. A nurse handed me the clothes the child was wearing, which were ragged and severely dirty, with the word Tom written on the tag. That evening, my mother returned from her trip and rushed to the hospital, murmuring John's name as she hugged Tom with tears flowing. Tom looked a lot like John. By the next day, Tom's condition had improved, but he still seemed scared. I gently asked his age, and he replied, 5 years old, spreading out one hand to show his fingers. Pleased with his clear speech, I praised him, and he smiled for the first time. However, Tom appeared thin, pale, and small, with bruises all over his body, according to the doctor. I persuaded the police to let us take responsibility for Tom until we could contact John, somehow avoiding a report being made. 3 days later, Tom was discharged. I bought him new clothes and he looked even more intelligent and cute in them. Finally, when we were leaving the hospital, I got through to John, but there was tremendous noise on the other end of the call. How could you leave him in the car under the blazing sun? He was taken to the hospital, and he survived, didn't he? So it's fine. He had bruises all over his body. Did you do this, Thomas? Clumsy. I was just disciplining him, John retorted without a hint of offense, and I was left speechless. He's only 5 years old. He's stupid, can't even remember the letters, no matter how many times I tell him. It's annoying, so I thought I'd leave him at our parents' house. I was shocked at my brother's verbal abuse of his son, thinking it might be better for him not to be with such a parent. Furthermore, John said, "I'm in the middle of a casino jackpot right now," and hung up the phone. Seeing this, Tom, who looked worried, started to silently shed tears. I softly said, "It's going to be okay," and stroked his head. "He's only 5. A time to be selfish and cry." But he didn't, and it felt odd that he never called for his daddy or mommy. Imagining the reason made my heart ache. After discussions with Michael and my parents, we decided to look after Tom in our home. At home, I made a kid's lunch with hamburgers and fries decorated with character flags. When I placed it in front of Tom, his eyes sparkled. "I've never seen anything like this. Can I really eat it?" "Of course. I made it for you, Tom." I loved the way he ate it with ketchup all over his mouth and a crunchy smile on his face. In the evening, Tom was playing around in the bath with Michael, laughing and enjoying. At night, I would read him picture books while lying next to him. He would listen intently with sparkling eyes, but then he would suddenly look at me with an anxious expression. "Can I stay here forever? I don't want to go back home anymore." "I get it. You want to stay here, right?" Tom nodded with relief, and it was heart-wrenching to see him that way. As the days went by, he became even more attached to me and Michael. When I was folding laundry, he would come over and offer to help. When I went shopping, he tried to carry my bags with his little body. Living together, I realized he was a kind and wonderful child. Michael and I, having grown fond of him, began discussing the possibility of adopting Tom, especially if John and his partner had no plans to raise him. Upon checking with the city office, I discovered that my brother and his wife had registered Tom's birth. On the certificate of residence, it stated that the parents and Tom were living in my parents' house. We initiated consultations at the family court about a month after taking in Tom. One day, John and a young woman named Riza, who introduced herself as his partner, came to visit. Tom saw them and hurriedly hid behind me, suggesting he might have had some frightening experiences. After years without seeing him, my brother appeared more aggressive, and his clothes were unkempt. Riza, with numerous piercings in her ears and nose, looked flashy. "How did you know where I live?" I asked. "Mom told me. By the way, sis, you're living in a nice house and having a great life, huh? I have something to discuss regarding Tom. Let me in." Though I felt uneasy, I couldn't refuse when it concerned Tom. According to my brother, he had married Riza shortly after leaving home, and they had been moving around frequently, sometimes living in their car due to a lack of a stable place to stay. While looking around my house, my brother suddenly got to the point. "I've heard from Mom that you don't have any children, right? You've been married for 10 years with no kids, so you probably can't have any, can you?" Confused, I asked, "What are you trying to say?" "We've got a great idea. If you want Tom, how about it? But it won't be for free." I was stunned by the audacity of him trying to sell his son for money, especially after attempting to leave him with our parents because he was annoyed. I was burning with anger. "John, what do you think your child is? He's not an object. Quit acting so high and mighty. I became rebellious because you're too serious. Our parents always sided with you. It's funny how you blame your parents and me for your own lack of success." "Shut up. Just give me the money." Enraged, John raised his hand to hit me. At that moment, Tom, who had been hiding behind me, stepped forward. He spread his arms, trying to protect me from John. Seeing this, I became even more determined to protect Tom. Selling a child for money is unthinkable. However, I decided to give them $13,400 I had saved in my dress as a settlement. I also had them sign an agreement that they would never get involved with the child again and obtained their consent for the adoption. John's wife remarked, "It's refreshing not to have to raise such a troublesome child," surprising me with her coldness. Once the procedures were completed, the two took the money, smirked, and disappeared. And so, Tom truly became our child, and we completed the necessary legal procedures. The following days were nothing but happiness. Tom grew up healthy, and we, as a couple, thanks to him, spent our days filled with smiles and joy. During this time, we noticed Tom's talents and wanted to nurture them. However, another incident occurred 15 years later. Once again, my younger brother and his wife came to visit. John had grown a scruffy beard, his hair was messy, and he looked rather thin. Although he should be only 41, he didn't look like it. The woman also had no makeup and was wearing dirty clothes and torn plastic sandals. It was immediately apparent that they had fallen on hard times and were living a rough life. I had a bad feeling as their visit couldn't mean anything good, and my reliable husband, Michael, was out working that day. "What brings you here?" "And I need some money." "Why should I give you any money?" "I'm surprised. I thought Tom was just a stupid brat. But he got into a prestigious university's medical department, didn't he?" It seemed John had met someone from our neighborhood in a local tavern and heard about Tom. In reality, Tom was very intelligent, having been the top of his class since elementary school and even getting into a prestigious medical school straight out of high school. That's no longer your concern, is it? It's a big deal. He's my son, and since he's such an excellent son, I thought I'd take him back. Seeing my shock, John smirked. "If you don't like it, how about you give me $33,500? "Sister, didn't I already give you $13,400 15 years ago? That's a different story. I can't give you such money." When I firmly refused, John grabbed my collar and threatened me, asking if I wanted to get hurt. I felt more pain in my heart than my body. Looking at my thoroughly rotten brother, at that moment, someone shouted, "Stop it," and grabbed John's arm. It was Tom, who had grown into a sturdy 20-year-old. John was easily subdued and was lying face down on the floor. My brother's wife, seeing the grown-up Tom, said sweetly, "You've grown up. I'm your mom. I've wanted to see you." But he firmly declared, "My only parents are the mom and dad of this house. I remember the horrible things you did to me when I was just 5. I experienced love for the first time when I came to this house. You are not my parents." Even after hearing Tom's words, the two didn't seem to give up. So I showed them the agreement we made 15 years ago. In fact, the agreement stated, "We will have no future involvement with the child. If we do not comply, we will be sued. You've broken your promise. I'm calling the police." They were visibly shaken, making excuses that they had completely forgotten about it. "Actually, we are being pursued by debt collectors. Without $33,500, we're in deep trouble. So don't be so cold. Helping out, sister." "You are rich, aren't you?" After threatening me earlier, he was now pleading. "I can't help you. The moment you abandoned Tom, you severed ties with me too. I have no brother anymore, please." I coldly rejected him. Helping him now would only encourage him to continue his behavior. As I was about to call the police due to their insistence, they reluctantly left. Later on, I heard that the couple had been caught shoplifting and seemed to be in jail, leading a miserable life. Meanwhile, we three, Michael, Tom, and I, continue to live a peaceful and happy life. Seeing Tom, who wants to become a doctor to help those suffering from illnesses, makes me really happy. Thinking about it, we were able to live every day with laughter thanks to Tom. And we hope to continue living happily together.